bring my Desperacido's lyrics. Okay, I can't tell if we are. So we might be live now. This thing does it that way. But let's just make sure. Let's get the monitor. Yes, we're live. It's so funny how that works. So just one more time. Hey, everybody. Looks like the monitor works. Let me scroll this so I can at least see the chat. So we got the chat. Got you and I. And let me just make sure. Let me see how that looks. Okay. It's not ideal, so I'm gonna have that OBS set up for next time. But for now, you can see that we're not sponsored by Zoom, although we should be since they force us to keep their logo in there. But anyway, uh, let's go ahead. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, everyone. Been a long time since we had a live stream here. Chris is my friend, and I sounded really unsure there, didn't I?
He's like,
Chris is forcing me to do this. No, no. Chris. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Garrett Don with Command Z and now more importantly, Summerland, the Summerland Academy for Radical Undoing. And Chris is a good buddy of mine. I met him via um, another client and friend over the last, now it's what, a couple years or year? Is it actually going on? Is it going like that?
probably been 2 years, man. Since I first reached out to you, probably been at least 2 years.
Oh man, this is ridiculous. This flow of time. We're going to get into this in the talk tonight about this timeless, the end of time thing too. But this is beautiful. I feel like I've known you for much longer than that, but I know temporally that it's. I thought it was less, but this is a cool thing. So yeah, Chris and I got a good connection. We both do. We've both had similar but different backgrounds, and we also do similar but different practices. So upcoming in the future, you'll probably see some Summerland events online with Chris and I both hosting, and then also in person, the in-person workshop. So we got those in the works, but you'll know when those will happen. Make sure you stay subscribed here on the YouTube, and make sure you, if you're not, that you're on the Summerland email list at radicalundoing.com. And you'll see there'll be a pop-up and you just subscribe. You get some cool stuff that you can try out right away. Cool stuff being the 7-minute emergency kit, just a few simple exercises you can do right away. Get yourself out of the hell of the mind, back home to the body and what's actually going on. I think you also get the prison break out of the hell of the mind, which is another angle of using the body to get out of the hell of the mind. Why? So that you can start actually making decisions rather than just overreacting to everything, but also so that you can interact with reality more directly rather than your interpretation of other people of what's going on. So that's the root of what I do, and I believe at the root of what Chris aims at as well. Is that correct, Chris? Do you want to add something? This is my poor introduction.
Sure. Definitely we share the somatic body work aspect, and it definitely lines up in the way you said it. Also, also I focus on, I might put it, getting out of compulsive, as you said, reactive states to more spontaneous choosing of things rather than living in your mind in more of a body centered, heart centered approach. But also, I focus on trauma and addiction too,
Hmm.
and releasing chronic tensions from being stuck in fear states for a long time from trauma, right? Fight or flight, and um, working with posture and finding more freedom in the body for its own sake, just to feel more vitality, more life. So same, you could probably say the same thing about your work in a different way. I take a
Sure.
slightly different approach, more Feldenkrais centered, more somatic experiencing, but that both are like implicit. Like a lot of what I do is implicit in your work. A lot of what you do is implicit in my work too. So they're definitely in this tree of getting out of the head, coming back to the body, getting out of compulsive reactive states and being more present and aware, which is means to be in the body, right? So yeah.
Beautiful. Great. Yeah, I like how you put that. And if you guys want to know more about our backgrounds and worldviews and that kind of stuff on my other channel, which is connected to this one, we did two live streams there,
At least, yeah.
at least two live streams over there. That's on the Theosis channel, which you can go to. It's just the I'll put it in the description here later. But basically, it's connected to this channel. It's the Garrett Dawn channel. Okay. For today, what the title says is you're already in the back rooms. What if there's a way out? I'm going to update the description here real quick, and then we'll just dive right into it. So let me just cut and paste this in there. So since I'm streaming with Zoom, the reason why I have to do this is because Zoom doesn't allow you just have to go straight to a live feed from Zoom. So there's no way to use like a scheduled stream or to update the description or anything. So it's not ideal, but it works for now. So I'm gonna put this in there, this description. And I want to give a shout out to Dyer um, for inspiring this stream because Chris and I were talking about doing a stream, but then we saw Jay's video, which I'll also link in the description. Let me go ahead and just do that now because I always say that and then we don't end up linking it. So youtube.com Jardar. Let's see, as Jim Bob calls him. Jay Dyer Backrooms. So Jay had a great video about the liminal space. Now, from my view, if you want to get what, and we'll review some of that today. We'll actually show some highlights from it. Let me go ahead and drop it into the description. Inspired by at Jay Dyer's video here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll put in the website just so. Chris, do you know your Substack by any chance off the top of your head? I'm gonna put you
Yeah.
in the link. Yeah, so substack.com how do I find you there?
Yep. Probably my name would bring it up, but also the publication is called Light Material. So LIGHT, just like light material. Um,
So let me find it. Light material. Oh, I'll just make sure we have. Oh, so it's the becominghuman25.substack.com.
yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Uh, becoming human 25.substack.com. That's correct, right?
Yep.
Chris here. Okay, so we got you in there. We got Summerland email list. We got me in there. We got Jay Dyer in there. We got the video linked in there. We're golden. We are golden. So let's go ahead and save. The description is up. Okay. Let's go back to the video and make sure that it's uh-oh. 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 Okay, no, there it is. Okay. Okay, there's my monitor. There's the live chat. If you're here, if you folks are seeing this, hearing this, make sure you give the stream a like and please type something in the chat. Make sure we can see and hear you. And if you have questions or comments along the way, please go ahead and feel free to post them. I do have the chat window open on the screen here. If you're not subscribed, please like, subscribe, share with your family, friends, and even your friends, family, and even your enemies, or your friends and enemies, and even your family. I think that's how it goes. Okay, so gotta get that order correct. Let's clean up the desktop here and jump right into it. So this stream is kind of like before this is like the picture of you while you're fat. This and including me. Now I'm me being fat.
Oh
That
boy,
joke's even more funny. But this is the before live stream. So once we get everything dialed in, you'll be able to look back at this and be like, "Wow, these guys came a long way."
for sure, for sure. Oh man,
Oh, okay. So,
am I retarded?
well, I would hope so. I would hope so. I mean, you're friends with me, so what can I say? Just
Inside joke.
Chris just hangs up the call as soon as he realizes what's really going
What
on.
did what did I sign up for with this guy? Um, who's Batman here? What was driving this car? Okay.
You imagine living inside someone like myself. So anyway,
Being Garrett Dawn. Being John Malkovich. You like that movie?
I do like that movie, and
Love
that
that
fits
movie.
in with the
I
topic
love
of
that
today
movie.
because
Actually, 100% it does.
yeah, because they're in the
100%,
fucking
dude.
back rooms. They have to
Dude,
enter the
100%.
small. Oh, dude. Okay, we'll touch on that. Let's touch on that. That is interesting. Fun fact. A woman that I once, let's just say, dated when I was like, I must have been 21. And I met her on veggiedate.com. I don't know if that still
The thing.
exists, but it was like a
That's the
veggie
thing,
date.
huh?
It was like back in the early days of the internet, and it was like a vegan and vegetarian dating site. And she was from LA.
Of course.
I'll save the name here, but to protect the innocent and the guilty. But she gorgeous woman, gorgeous, covered in tattoos, which I thought was super gorgeous back then. I still kind of have this punk rock part of me that never dies, but
Mhm.
gorgeous and a little bit crazy. And we met on there and like instantly had this connection. And then she flew to Minnesota to meet me. And I took her to see 2 nights in a row of the band Wilco. And this was when Wilco like had their first album out or second album out, I can't remember. So we went to see Wilco and now see, I forgot totally. Why did I bring her up? Oh, she was in Being John Malkovich.
Seriously?
Check it out, dude. She was the scene where where they fall down onto the highway after they fall out of John
Yep.
Malkovich's brain.
Yep.
Her car was one of the cars driving by.
Oh yeah.
She was an extra in films in LA.
Extra funny.
Now check it out. In the film, now actually I probably shouldn't mention this second one because then people will be able to identify
I was
her.
about to say, well, no more, no, not anonymous anymore.
Yeah, that with that piece, the crazy people would be able to figure it out. If I mentioned the second thing, for sure you'd be able to identify her. So I'm not going to mention the second one, but remind me later, Chris. I'll tell you the other piece of the story. It's wild. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The other film that she was in.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, that was a real digression right there. Real Garrett digression.
Mhm.
So what we're going to talk about today is based on we saw this Jay Dyer video, and it was Jay Dyer talking about the backrooms and liminal spaces. I myself have been an avid explorer of liminal spaces, both internally and externally in the form of abandoned buildings, abandoned industrial spaces, abandoned prisons, abandoned mental hospitals, abandoned houses. And I was fascinated by them even since I must have been 15. Yeah, 14, 15, because I would go out and then 16 when I got licensed. We would drive around rural Minnesota. One house in particular stands out to me. I can still see everything. We went in that house. It was in the newspaper because the family who was there at some point, I don't know, I don't remember what happened, but they just left. They just disappeared. And that guy's chickens and everything and animals were still out back, not being fed and taken care of. So they came, whoever they are, the state or whoever came and dealt with that situation, but they left the house untouched. So when we went into this house and it was unlocked, there were still dishes like in the sink and some on the table, like some like the half piece of toast that wasn't finished. So it was like someone just up and left right at that moment, and everything was left in that state. And I didn't have any concept of what liminal was or anything at that age at 16, but that was just absolutely profound to see a space and disturbing in some sense too, to see a space that was like just up to 2 weeks ago inhabited, and now it was not inhabited any longer. And also how quickly it had started to decay. It was like the decay had set in a little bit just because no one had been inside the house and the heat was off or whatever was going on for that, you know, 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever it was. So that really stuck with me. And then over all the decades up to now, I've had a fascination with exploring those spaces. And now with the advent of the internet, because that would have been like 92, 93, or 94, somewhere around in there that we explored
Mm.
that house. And then after that, many, many more abandoned houses, abandoned farms, abandoned barns, abandoned whatevers around Minnesota. And at one point, my crazy friend Jake, he really influenced me in many, many ways. But at one point, he was squatting his family's own abandoned house. And in the living room where he was squatting, where I formerly had hung out with him with it while his family was living there. Uh, I was working at Dairy Queen at the time, and I can't remember how he got in touch with me. I think he showed up at Dairy Queen or something, or he called the phone at the Dairy. He was always we had a mind meld for many years, and he always knew how to find me. But there were no cell phones then in his house. There was no electricity or phone line. But somehow he got in touch with me enough to where I knew after I got off Dairy Queen, I was going to drive to his house and hang out with him. And he was at his family's abandoned house, and there was papers strewn everywhere. And in the living room, always there was this giant moose head, which just was cool when the family was living there. But when I showed up and we were there with like just candlelight, and I brought batteries so we could listen to tapes on a Walkman, like we're listening to tapes, and this fucking giant moose head is there, and it's the most scary thing I've ever seen in that context, like with the flickering candlelight. So basically, it went from the family home to the liminal space in a very abrupt period. And I remember being like, at the same, it was haunting, but like I wanted to live in that space. Like I felt like, oh, like Jake has the right idea. And I even had a plan that I started developing at that. I was 16, where, oh, I will just go and live in different abandoned houses all across Minnesota, like for years. That was what I thought I would wanted to do with my life.
With my life, with my life. Yeah, I mean, I just wrote down like what you're talking about, possibility and meaninglessness, living in the question. Like with a liminal space, there's endless possibility. So there's potential for meaning, but the dark side of that is meaninglessness, like an infinity of. So it's like pre-meaning or post-meaning. It could be both. Like it could be on its way to something meaningful, or it could be just the labyrinth of emptiness and hell, right? Like an in-between space is pregnant with meaning. It could be negative or positive meaning. So definitely would be attractive to a six to like, yeah, like it's like Peter Pan space, like Neverland in a way. Uh,
Yeah, and it was such a trip, just that, especially the one where had forgotten about that. But I was with that same guy, Jake, in that other abandoned house before his parents had abandoned their house. He had a real tragic childhood, super violent father, crazy mother. I mean, I saw the family go nuts on him when I was there at the house a few times, and I know from him they were beating the shit out of him. And his mom once said when he and I were just sitting there, and we had like a sandwich or something for lunch, and she's like, "You guys should go outside." And she says to her own son, "Jake, I just can't stand the sight of you." And it wasn't like tailing off some thing he did, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a momentary expression. It was just her wandering through the room and making that comment to him. And I remember feeling like that was so wild. Like, and so I was embarrassed to even be there sitting in the room, like, I'm 15, 16, sitting there, and the mom just walks in and says that to him.
Well, I could see now why he would be the kind of kid who would live in his parents' abandoned squatting house with the mom, uh, like that.
Yeah, you know.
But
Uh,
so let's back up a little bit. Like, what's this all about? What's a liminal
yeah,
space?
yeah. So
Why is it
I called
relevant
in.
to anything? And what's up with it?
Yeah. So what I had in mind here was what's the title of the stream was you're already in the back rooms, and we'll by the end of this video you'll understand why that's the case, and then we'll also, as we already kind of touched on, show you how embodiment somatics are the beginning of the way out. So, like I said, make sure you go check out Jay Dyer's video to get the whole background of what we're talking about here. But basically, from my notes, the backrooms, if you're unaware, uh, are like this internet meme that started. I don't know exactly when it started, but it's like photos of this sort of yellowish, graying, decaying corporate office, but with almost nothing in it, just hallways and doorways and empty offices. And this guy Kane Pixels made a YouTube series of videos about what are called the backrooms, and then as well as I think Reddit or other forums online, the lore started to expand. And it was like this place where there was a phrase no clip, you no clip or glitch out of reality into into this empty sort of office looking space. The way Jay just described it on his video was that the backrooms and liminal corporate labyrinth describes, quote, spaces that you could no clip into or glitch out of reality into some alternate infinite hell world, a sort of labyrinth of the corporate nihilistic empty space between worlds or between realities. And liminal, just for people who don't know, liminal space comes from the Latin for threshold, like a space between worlds or between spaces. So then Jay further goes on to describe dead malls and manufactured purposelessness. So the dead malls, this is another Jay quote that I found relevant. A dead mall is an eerie corporate liminal space with its own aesthetic and vibe that now has no people and has no product and becomes this sort of ideological museum to a forgotten time and a forgotten way of being, unquote. And then another quote that really struck me there was, quote, to see it without humans and without products, it almost seems like a dystopian hellscape where what if the purpose of all this and its purposelessness was actually to produce a kind of purposelessness in the humans themselves? So why don't we hang there? That's what the backrooms are. And then he related it to dead malls. Now, as a kid, I grew up going to malls, and the mall was like the thing. Like as soon as I was old enough to
That,
have a bicycle, we would make this adventure, which probably about an hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour bike ride. I can't remember, to the mall. And this was like the holy grail
that's
for
so
us
every
kids.
weekend, me and my dad would go to the mall. You go, you buy something, you window shop, you get some Chinese food at the, you know, you have just a smorgasbord of eye feasting on your eyes, and yeah, it's like the materialist's dream, the mall, uh, a buffet of whatever you want to look at. We would go to Gibraltar Trade Center, which was this giant like trade show of just every weekend. We just go there and see what they got, see what's new, what new things can we buy or look at and think about buying or yeah, man, that was the thing, the mall for sure.
Yeah, and it was even the social center for like, oh, this is where we could meet girls, you know? when I was 14, 15. It was like go there and uh sorry, just one second. I had someone saying there might be an emergency here. Let me just check in. Just make sure this friend is okay. So anyway, yeah, same. We would go with my parents sometimes to the city when we lived in rural Minnesota. It was an hour from the city, and we would go to the city, and that would be like just going to visit various malls. And in Minnesota, especially, which is the birthplace of the mall. I'm not sure I'm proud of that or not, but um, we would go to malls. And once I was in college too, my girlfriend at the time, we loved going to movies. So we would go to the movie theaters at the various malls and wander around the mall. And just all kinds of stuff like this. It's totally wild. Uh, Once I found punk rock, then I thought the mall was fake and gay or whatever. I thought the mall was really ridiculous. Uh, but we went to the mall even to make fun of the mall at that point. And Mall of America was like this insane thing when it was conceived of, and then they started building it, and it was like going to contain like what do you call it? An amusement park, like with roller coaster and all this stuff.
Well, what they're doing now where I live is tearing down the big malls and making them outdoor malls. So you walk through, all the shops are still there, but you're walking outside. And so that seems to be like in Florida, that's how most of the malls are, I
Yeah,
think.
like Arizona
And
was like that too. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So at least maybe that's a good sign that they're bringing back nature. People don't want to be in this big labyrinth of a building looking at their stores anymore. We'll see.
Well, and the malls, then the malls were designed. Also, they had the Muzak. Um, you had the Muzak, and you know what Muzak is. Jay covered that on the video too. But it was like where you took popular songs and then reduced it to the essentials and like
Yep.
kind of shitified it and then feed it back to you. It's
I
like,
never knew what that meant until he said that. Actually, I was like, "Oh, that's what Muzak was." I remember reading that. Like, is that mute? What does that mean? What does that word mean?
yeah,
And now,
Muzak
now
itself
I
is
know.
the actual company name of the company who produced it, I suppose. And then it became a colloquial term.
I see. Okay.
So the real colloquial term, I suppose, would be elevator music when you'd say that.
Right. 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 Okay. So, well, a mall is not technically a liminal space. Like, I guess it can be.
The mall itself was not, but the dead mall. So this is where we
Yes.
get to
Yeah.
this dead mall thing,
Okay.
is that so one of the questions that came up is why are is liminal horror, why are liminal spaces, why is it
Yeah.
so hugely popular? Like Kane Pixel's Backrooms series on YouTube is like millions and millions, if not a billion views on some of these Backrooms videos. So this was a question Jay was kind of bringing up on his video too. Why the popularity of these things? And then I further thought of why urbex, like the urban exploration and exploring abandoned buildings. I mean, when I was a kid, I guess there was a lot of people doing it, but in the early internet, there was a handful of people like infiltration. I think urbex is even the name of one of the groups. There was infiltration, was one of the big ones. And then there were smaller sites made by people who were just doing their own explorations. Some that I found specifically in Minneapolis. But back then, it was like the information passed from person to person. You know what I mean? Like if you knew about abandoned building and an entrance into it that was safe, you might tell that to a couple people.
Mm.
Then it became more and more like people were doing video and recording, and then when the with the internet growing, and now it's like, there's probably a million YouTube channels that are about this abandoned explorations. So it's become huge, and people love these channels. I mean, it's in the millions, millions and millions and millions of people watching
So
this.
what's your take on it? Why it's popular right now? What's going on?
So, uh,
And then I'll tell you mine.
I always ask myself, why did I like going to these places? And I don't know that I ever had a good answer. The way that Jay answered that, as far as the liminal spaces, was that the people younger than us, people born let's say 2000 and after, I suppose. We're born into a world dominated by Wi-Fi and then eventually smartphones and internet. Whereas folks like yourself, myself, Jay, and others of our age group, we're born and ex grew up in a world that was not yet dominated by that particular technology. And so the kids who are growing up and exploring those spaces are trying to see, uh, looking for the meaning that used to be there in those spaces that's no longer there.
hmm Okay. The way I the way I'm thinking about it and what interests me about it is, I guess in one word, it's the shaman. The the obsession with liminal spaces as a physical space mirrors the turning back to the archetype of the shaman who has 1 foot. He's a dweller on the threshold. He's
Mm.
got 1 foot in the infinite and 1 foot in the temporal. And so I see it. That's the at least the aspect of it that interests me too. Is the same reason why I was attracted to the shaman myself in going into the extreme liminal spaces, which would be these psychedelic states, these trance states, these immaterial states that have labyrinth qualities about them, which can lead to what we call a bad trip, which is the labyrinth of eternal meaninglessness that you can never get out of, and then also perhaps a in between state that could lead to the numinous experience, perhaps. Um,
Mm.
and so the search for meaning is where we both agree on. Like they're looking for meaning in something past, and then for those who are looking for spiritual meaning, often are going to these, ancient traditions, often with something like a psychedelic or looking for a state change, looking for to go into a different place, anything but the dead materialism that we've been given,
Mm.
which is interesting
Interesting.
too because there's a dead materialism to that empty mall space too, right? So there, and yet it's fascinating because it's there's a lot to it. I think we talked about the Giver, the book, which was like my when I look back now, I'm like, oh, the Giver. That's the first time I saw the image of the shaman who was in this kind of dead gray society that kind of mirrors these liminal spaces. Um, and I think that's what like lit did something to me where that was yes, I want it whatever the giver is, the shaman. Like I'm not the one who's supposed to be given the job, the normal job, but I'm whatever the giver receiver guy is doing, which I realized later, oh, that's the archetype of the shaman in that story.
Mhm.
um that was my calling, and that led me ultimately to go and discuss explore these psychedelic spaces. And that's the first time I heard liminal spaces was in my psychedelic therapy training, where we're talking about schizophrenia and madness as um, not negative, but perhaps initiatory, right? So there's an exploration of madness and meaning and shamanism and spirituality all wrapped up in this for me, from my perspective. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes total sense to me as well. I never linked it up with like the psychedelic journeying and for myself. I never, for some reason, made the connection between those two, between the exploring because when I was exploring those spaces, especially the old houses and things like that, back when I was 14, 15, 16, especially 16 with the car, I didn't have any context for liminal or shaman or any of that stuff. Um,
yeah, but your whole life was an exploration of that stuff. So
right.
of course it's linked up. Like it's all like that's your whole, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now I'm thinking the hitchhiking was also, I mean, like you're between cars is fully liminal space, you know?
Right. Like the hitchhiker archetype is like a shaman, is a liminal figure, man. Like
Oh, yeah. So this is really yeah, it's starting to Garrett dawn on me now. Oh no, dude. I just got a backroom sense while we were hanging out here talking about this. And you mentioned that on your comment to me earlier today, right? On the you said that you're always in the back rooms. Like there, what were you saying? You're like about there being a way out and this kind of stuff.
yeah, I can't remember now. Let me, you can keep talking while I uh, bring it back. Yeah, on that voice note, where did I go with it? Um, hmm, it'll come to me how I was speaking about it. I mean, a lot of what I just said is related to it, um, in my perspective. Um, I wish I would have wrote down what I said.
I'll
Um,
listen to it right now. Let's just bring it up because it was a 1 minute message. Why not?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, let me give it a listen. Here we go.
So I shouldn't wander around.
Oh no, that was the that was
Don't
your comment to me
don't
privately.
listen to the wrong one now. Uh,
Oh, here, can you hear this?
Backrooms is that you
Does it
can't
come
get out.
through?
Another yeah. Aspect of the labyrinth, the backrooms, is that you can't get out. The back room, yes, you can get out of the back room, but you can't get out of the situation we're in.
Yeah,
You can only.
that was it. That was
So my point with that, my thinking there was like, if you try to abandon your cross, that leads to the madness, the meaninglessness. If you try to get out of life, if you try to, you can't get out of this thing alive, right? We're in life, right? Without suffering. Like the way out is Christ, as we know.
yeah.
Um, if you try to get out without Christ, you're going to find yourself in an endless labyrinth of that's it, right? Like either you accept, embrace your suffering, embrace your cross, and go with that, or you're in a labyrinth of some sort. And that the garden, which we're trying to get back to, not back to, but the New Jerusalem, as it's called, is an ordered. Again, a garden is a place of beauty, meaning, and order.
Hmm.
So we're either going towards this higher order place, which was mirrored in Eden, and now the next one would be this, uh, the higher order of that, or you're in the labyrinth of meaninglessness and where the world has enmity against you. And so it's like the fall brings us into this labyrinth of this disordered garden that we have to find order in through embracing our own suffering and our cross. That's the way out. And if you try to get out other than that, you're going to find yourself in some loop, some kind of loop. Um,
Yeah, one of the quotes that Jay mentioned that stood out to me about that was the great horror is the meaninglessness of what used to seem so meaningful. So this ties in. You and I both, now look, you and I both were, when we described our experience with malls,
yeah,
I was just filled with life remembering it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
remembering the effort it took to ride the bike along this highway and on these paths all the way to the mall,
Yeah,
running into my dad who gave me a $20 bill to go to the movies with a friend and play pool, like billiards afterward.
right.
And like every detail of those journeys to the mall, I could still remember viscerally of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
excited I was to get there. And that was the destination.
right.
This place that was
And
already almost like the cracks were starting to show even then.
yeah. And now it's a wasteland. Well, and it's like a carnival. There's a carnival aspect to it too. It's like the mall's a carnival in a way, right?
But
And
yeah,
it's just
the sounds and the
yeah,
lights and the signs.
yeah,
It's like the way that like what are these shitty websites where there's like more ads than there is content, like
right.
BuzzFeed or whatever it is, where
Exactly.
like what happened to these celebrities and it's like seven things and there's just millions of shit like flashing
Yes.
at you. That the mall was like the pre-internet version of, oh yeah, what was it, like Times Square or Tokyo when you see those scenes filmed where like there's TVs everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a and what is a bad trip? Like, if you've ever been on a bad trip, it's the carnival, dude. You're being mocked. There's a mockery aspect to a carnival, right? To live at a carnival would be the worst hell ever, where nothing's serious and everybody's smiling at just madness. Like that's like that's the worst hell there is in my,
That friend
at
of mine,
least.
Jake, that I mentioned, one of the things, this is so wild. One of the things I learned from him was that hitchhiking was a thing and that you could do it, that I could do it actually, because he
Yeah.
disappeared and then showed up back and wasn't killed. And he had been to
See, it
Florida
works.
and
You can
back
do
to
this.
Minnesota at age like
Yeah.
15, 14. And second, he worked as a carny. And so I would go visit him at the carnival. Now I'm remembering too. And so I got to meet all these carnies, but like after the carnival was closed. And it was so weird, dude. And these were all like kids. They were already all having sex probably since they were 10. You know what I mean? And they were all runaways and had joined the carny. And there were ones that were more, a little older and a little more gritty and
Oh
fucked
yeah.
up. And then there was like the newbies, and Jake's like, just join the carny with me. And I was all, and before that, he was like, hitchhike to Florida with me. And I was like, no fucking way, dude. I'm in school. Like, I'm, I'm 15, bro. Like, what? Even then, I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, I'm going. And he came back like a little messed up, but like totally fine. He said, what did you do? And he's like, I was selling incense for Dr. Frankincense in Key West. I was like, what? Yeah, but that guy also joined the Carney. And of course. So he
Of course.
was Liminal Jake, we'll call him.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
kind of, so that connection with him had a profound, profound impact on my life, for the year or two that I was in proximity to him.
Yeah, well, we've just
Yeah.
made now this connection between the shaman, liminal spaces, the carnival, the dead malls. Like there's
And the
this
hitchhiking.
connection
Yeah.
and hitchhike. Yeah, it's the traveler, and the the light in that is like of this world, but not in this world, but not of it. Where did Christ hang out? He hung out with the carnies, dude. He hung out with the prostitutes and the misfits, So it's like the people who are drawn to that also have a spiritual pull. They're just looking for it in the wrong ways, right? Like um it's the dark side of spirituality. It's the dark side of the sensitive people who don't feel that the world is enough or that they're not made for it. So uh the devil's there to try and co-opt that for his means as well. And yeah, there's a lot there. It's funny because I also have a relationship with the carnival. My family, my uncle, went to Florida to work for the carnival. Um, he
Oh, to
died.
Florida too, no less.
Florida, man. Yeah, Florida. Oh, yeah, like yeah. Um,
That's also just as a side note, an anti-psychiatry side note. That's like the Everglades is supposedly the location where some of the MK Ultra Project Phoenix serial killers were trained. The invisible hand of death or whatever it's called, that group, that underground group.
mm,
Some island in the middle of the Everglades where they're trained. I mean, it's so horrifying to even think about, but Florida generally is just, I
yeah,
never been there, and now I think I
really.
would never go there. Yeah.
No, it's the worst. And there's a relationship between Michigan and Florida. It's like everybody who goes on spring break, they go to Florida. At least back in the day, it was like, where you going on vacation? You go to Florida, and it's the worst. Actually, it's like everybody's on each, and it's a liminality space too, because it's
Oh
either
yeah,
there's
spring break.
yeah, and the people who stay there are the people who want to be on vacation forever, right? They got the worst tan. They drink gold rings, like they just, it's the worst. It's Disney World.
Oh
Disney World's
God.
there too. Of course it is. Another liminal space.
Oh man, yeah, abandoned
Carnival.
theme parks. What a crazy thing that is. In Bosnia too, there's the abandoned, and I think almost every country that's hosted the Olympics has one of these now, which is the abandoned Olympics settings.
Mm.
Like in Sarajevo, there's abandoned Olympics outside of there, wherever they had the Winter Olympics in Bosnia. So you can go like climb around on the luge and bobsled tracks, and totally bizarre.
So how does this link up to somatic work or undoing work or coming back to the body?
Okay,
Um,
so let's put it like this. If you don't have, if you don't do somatic work, if you're not in touch, if you can't get out of the mind and know, so this is key, know the difference between what's going on inside here versus what's going on around you, inside your body, but around you as well. If you can't discern and know that you are discerning the difference between the contents of the mind versus what the visceral physical experience is around you, then you could potentially be lost inside a liminal space that's like a simulation of your life. It's an imaginary form of your life, and it's not grounded in your body and in the actuality in which you live. So this is what I meant when I say you're already in the back rooms.
yeah.
We're already in the back rooms. And Jake touched on this where it was like by the end, we don't even have to have what was it that was like toward the end that was so fascinating. It was like
Oh, we don't need some big grand conspiracy to trick the people. Just I can't remember how he put it, but
it was like basically that you don't need to have a person like consciousness uploaded onto the cloud or something like this for the end game of this nihilist corporatist worldview. It's that
right.
you
You
just you become the you embody and not become the liminal space. I'm butchering it now, but
also, well, you don't have to change the external world. You just have to change the way people see it. You give them the
right, right,
program, and
right, right,
it
right,
skews reality around them. So what they see is a limit, is some unreality. You don't have to change
right.
the world, just the people. Give them a different program.
And this is the
Change.
funny thing with things like the Matrix, where they got it wrong, is that we're not living inside a computer simulation. That's absurd. You can't even make the claim because you'd have to have access outside of
Right,
a simulation in order to make the claim.
right.
And the funny thing is, the other people you're talking to wouldn't exist, and neither would you, because you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
so the
Yeah, it's like
simulation
an old
theory.
experiment they already figured out, and yet it's back again as if it's a possibility
Yeah, and
because
everyone
of
keeps on,
statistics.
and Elon Musk and all these
Right.
people keep on nattering on about it, but it's a false start.
Yeah,
What is meant by it, and what is much more horrifying,
exactly.
is that you are living in an imaginary world that is a simulation. It's overlaid on the real.
Right. Right.
And we've started to live completely in the transparency, in the overlay, and not at all, and it's not grounded in the real whatsoever.
Yeah.
Except it's not complete. It can never be complete because you would die.
Right.
So it people become aware of it when they become hungry, when they
Right.
are in pain, when the body's in pain in some way, not the mental suffering that can go on forever. That's infinite. But when they're in physical pain or when they're hungry or they have to go to the bathroom. And so here's what they okay, and we'll say who they are to some degree, but what they being the let's call it the psychiatric worldview people as one aspect of it. Whenever you become too aware of the body, they've created 1,000 different labels uh, to diagnose you with, and then subsequent prescriptions to get you back to not being aware of that body state again. So they've medicalized the experience of aliveness, of physicality.
I was going to say,
So
give me,
whenever
give
you
me,
happen to slip out of what I call the hellish snow globe of the mind, which essentially is the liminal space everyone's walking around within, it's like a fishbowl. The hellish snow globe of the mind starts here and it's up here, and it's full of your life. It has Bible in there, it has me and Chris in there, it has your family in there, and it's a simulation of those things. It's an interpretation of them. So rather than you interacting with the person, the real person, so if me and Chris are with each other hanging out, instead of me interacting with Chris and letting him be spontaneous and fresh and new at all times, I'd be interacting with just my idea and my interpretation of Chris. So Chris could say something that was a compliment to me or something like, hey man, I really enjoyed our time together. But if I have my simulation of Chris is that he's out to get me, I'm going to interpret what he just said as another way of him expressing that he's out to get me. You see what I mean? Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, and what your argument is that most people live in this space and they don't realize that the way they interacted with reality is through these, let's say, unconscious beliefs or film, and they never make contact with reality because it's always through concepts or thinking instead of a direct perception, which kind of
Yes.
bypasses the interpretive structure of the mind.
And because of everyone has a memory. This is where Dark City is really cool. But everyone has a memory of the time before they were living inside that snow globe, even if it's just a flash of a memory, uh, um, unless it was like severe trauma while they were in the womb, which, okay, I'll allow it. But uh, almost everyone has some memory of a time when they were not living in that, where they had this youthful joy and curiosity and exploration. And this is now even as I'm saying it, I'm wondering what it's like if the kids who grew up staring at the phone from less than age 2 on, if they even do have a memory of it. I don't know. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think it's it's like seeing something for the first time. So every child has that until they no longer see bird, but now they have a word for it, and that alone, it's like they say you actually don't see houses. Your memory fills in what you remember from the first time you saw how you never see it as it is. You just have a memory of it. You kind of glimpse it, and then your memory fills it in. And I think that's why people are so attracted to psychedelics. It's like because they made give you that experience again where it's almost like seeing something for the first time again. It shuts down the default mode network or something which is your story and your interpretive structure, and when you can kind of override that you're like seeing something for the first time again. So yeah, I think that's the childlike state we're trying to get to. um
Yeah. And, I recall when I first was learning landscape drawing, and as I started getting really into it, just graphite, not with any color or anything. When I would look around at a fence or I was driving around in California, I was seeing everything brand new because I was seeing like, oh, how would I draw that in black and white? So if I saw a fence or a tree and suddenly the texture and the shading of everything became in full view for a short time while I was really focused on the landscape drawing. And then also like with if you've ever had a person you were really close to, like a lover or a partner, a wife or whatever, and then you're no longer close to them, then you start seeing them in a different way. You see them as like this object of anger or hatred or distaste or disgust. And then maybe many years later, you might look back again and see that person as they actually are and have at least this works this way for me, have a much deeper, almost profound grasp of the wholeness of that person outside of your likes and dislikes and the ways that they were supposed to live up to or the ways they didn't live up to your expectations of them.
yeah.
So the snow globe, yeah. So the snow globe is a liminal space that each person is walking around inside of. And
Yeah.
the horror or the terror of the situation, like as Gurdjieff would put it, but the horror of this is that as soon as you start to feel real aliveness again, as soon as you start to come back into touch with your own body, with your own wants and needs, you've been trained ahead of time to self-diagnose with diagnostic words that we humans didn't always have to use.
And even in Gurdjieff's time, which was a long time ago, he saw that, huh? Like even in that early, well, I guess that was early 1900s. So
Turn of the
yeah.
century, yeah.
Um, so so there's a but there seems to be many components to this. Like one, becoming an adult from a child is like it seems to happen, but it also seems to be a part of like before, let's say, scholasticism or the Enlightenment, people didn't do this. This is a relatively modern thing that's now at its peak because of our technologies. Is it a something fundamental about the human state that we have to that's a period that we have to pass through to that and everybody does pass through, but that we have to get to the other side of as part of evolving in your own personal way. Like, what is to what degree is it a part of the human condition and it always has been, or is it an artificial thing uh, that's happened recently, or is it a part of every human being's path to become a more awakened person? Like, how do you see it? Any of that?
Ooh, that's a great question. My worldview used to be hardcore, strict individualist. That was it. That was the height of the work that I would do, the radical undoing, the embodiment, and everything. The highest aim that I used to promote was the free and spontaneous. I used to call it the free and spontaneous flow of life force, both
Yeah.
within the individual and in the external world. Now I see that as absurd in the external world simply because without anything else guiding that, then you have Hannibal basically, the training the serial killers, because that would be the free and spontaneous flow of life in that particular person. For that, you could make an argument, let's say. From my view, there would be some kind of, obstruction of that. But now I disagree with that. Not that you should be blocked up and full of tension, but that I agree with it on the internal landscape of the individual, meaning there should be the free and spontaneous flow of life force as it was meant to flow through the human body. So, what I mean by that, when a person is afraid, but there's not actually anything around them that's a physical threat, the fear constricts the blood flow to the brain and the body tightens up and the blood flow is constricted. So, if a person then is able to breathe or do the gag reflex or do some radical undoing exercises or whatever it is, come out of the fear and actually look around and assess the situation, they would see there is nothing actually there ready to attack them. There's no clear and present danger in the space. So, yes, I still agree with the free and spontaneous flow of life force in the individual,
Mhm.
but guided by a higher telos.
Yeah.
Well, why do I say that? The person first has to get out of this constant fear state, which everyone's living inside, fear and overreaction, and no contact with actuality to even be able to discern, is there an actual threat going on? So if you're
Yeah.
not in contact with reality to know if there's a threat going on, you're living in a constant state of overreaction and fight and flight, meaning the normalized state is constant fight or flight reaction. And so in that state, everything is constricted and the person is not actually making any decisions. They're only reacting to perceived threats.
Yeah.
So in order
I,
to get to a place where you could check to see, do I have a higher purpose in my life? Should I go check out a church? You know what I mean? To be able to do anything, to say or
yeah.
do or decide anything, the person would have to get out of that state. And as I said toward the beginning of the stream, to learn to know the difference between the contents of the imagination versus what's actually happening in the body and in the surroundings and in actuality.
And not only the contents of the imagination, but you see that there's tension and memory stored in the body. So you actually have to get it out of and that kind of feeds the imagination. They like go hand in hand. You work on the body, the imagination kind of becomes uh, like baseline, like not some.
Yeah, and when you do the Summerland, radical undoing body work, for example, the break when you destroy the chronic tensions very quickly in the body, then the working theory, let's say, is that the lies in the mind are held in place or grounded in the chronic tensions of the body.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um,
if you were to undo the chronic tensions of the body, the cognitive dissonance of the mind will decrease. That's the
yeah.
working theory, and that seems to hold true in all the clients I've worked with over all these last 20 years or so. So you attack the chronic tensions of the body systematically, week by week, month by month, and year by year. And then slowly but surely, the contents of the mind, not that they're emptied, not that they're destroyed, but that they're clarified, they're brought into light. And when a lie is brought into awareness, it's you're no longer able to hold on to it.
Yeah. 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 That's where I guess Feldenkrais lines up in the method that I kind of use, but also there's like a emphasis on education because you also have to not only release the tension, but show people that there's a better way. Now that might spontaneously just happen, like, oh, I don't have to clench my jaw when I'm writing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It might just become aware, but also you might have to teach somebody how ease feels in the system so that you show them they're always working too hard or they
Mhm.
always are clenching the belly they're not aware of it, just like you're not aware right now that your extensors in your neck are holding your head up. If they
Yeah.
weren't, your head would just go like this, so
Yep.
that they're always working, but you're not aware of it because they're just always on until you lay in a float tent and you realize, oh, I don't have to let my head up, the salt water allows it to float. And we're doing that in a bunch of areas in our body that is just wasting energy, and it's a protection against some imaginary threat. And
Yep.
it's worse now because the threats are imaginary because nobody's running from a. At least back in the day, you knew if you had to actually be under threat, you had to go and make your own food. You knew that there were might be real predators, but you made preparation and you could relax for a while. Now everybody's just we're running around like we're being chased or have to live up to some idea, but nobody is. So it's even worse because it's false and imaginary and bigger than everybody makes it. Uh, Perhaps.
Yeah. I like how you describe that. It reminded me of a dream. I had a couple or series of dreams like this, but one that stands out was about kind of like Cormac McCarthy's The Road, these post-apocalyptic scenes. And I recall being in an abandoned house and I was carrying around a sleeping bag or a blanket. I don't remember which, one or the other. And we just gathered up whatever we could out of that house and then walked onto the road. And and then whenever you would hear any sound at all in this post-apocalypse in the dream or see any lights, it was like you must hide immediately, because you have no idea what's coming. But there was something that I almost wanted to go back into the dream, even though it was absolutely terrifying, it was also all real. Everything was real. The threat was real. The warmth of that blanket was immediate. It was amazing. The fact of having a blanket was amazing, like every little thing was was such a treasure that we had formerly just thrown out and taken for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Well,
think the fact that we're pretty much living, 30 seconds or let's be generous. Let's be generous. We're living probably 30 minutes from that at any given moment. However long
from
it takes from when the power runs out and the water stops flowing through the tap to people start to react. I mean, how far is it away?
yeah. Well, I think we're all also craving real, real life, real danger, real something real. People are going to retreats and trying to. We have to search out asceticism these days because we're bombarded with the ease of having everything handed to us, and yet we're more anxious than ever. Uh, so I don't know. It's interesting. But for your work and our work, that brings people back to like life, meaning. It's in the body. It's in the felt sense of things. To feel real danger, to feel real emotions again. Uh, yeah, I think. Anyways, so I want to bring one point. It kind of goes back to what you were saying, but you
Yeah.
you you were talking about when you were drawing. What did you say you drew with? Not even
I was
color, like
I was drawing with a 9B graphite
okay.
pencil.
It's interesting just because that's I just read this like yesterday in Awareness Through Movement, and when Feldenkrais met his first teacher, he told him to sit down and draw a lamp, and he gave him the lamp in front of him. It was whatever was on the desk in front of him. He told him to sit down and draw it. And he had what you just said. He was drawing with charcoal or whatever it was. So it reminded me of that. So he drew the lamp, and the teacher came and he's like, that's what you see right there. And when he looked at it again, it's like none of the lines that he drew did he actually see on the lamp. It so he was drawing, you know, what a lamp looks like in his head, but not the lamp in front of him. Then the teacher instructed him, and he's like, what he actually saw was different shadings. And after he actually drew what he saw, like not the memory of the concept of a lamp, but what he actually saw, he was amazed. He was like I only thought a painter could do like that. And then the teacher was like, see, you don't even apply your own teachings to your drawing. Like he wasn't mature enough to even apply what he knew in his head to his own experience. But I think that's an interesting, I think it lines right up with what you're talking, with what we're talking about experiencing reality, and that there's this conceptual framework on everything because of our memory of things partially. And then that's locked up and then there's the kind of tension and your own trauma aspect of it. But even beyond that, we're all filtering through like the left brain, maybe to some degree, the conceptual mind, the discursive mind, the whatever it is, and that somehow our education system has done that to all of us through sitting us at desks and teaching our heads and not our bodies, and focusing on STEM, science, mathematics as the height of all everything, and art is this side thing. And so we don't even know how to see the world with texture before because it's been educated out of us. I think The Giver even points to that. Like part of it's that they took away all the memories of the past. Everything's gray and logical and scientific, and we take
Mhm.
away the color out of everything and the texture and the layers and the emotions. Are you feeling an emotion? Oh, you got bipolar. You got everybody's got ADD. Yeah, that's my ADD. Somebody, 2 times I heard somebody say that today as they had to apologize for stepping in front of me because they're ADD. So we all like normal human experience has been
Oh
uh
man, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It triggered a memory about working in one of those tall ass bank buildings in Minneapolis as a temp worker. I would get on the bus from a suburb, take the 45-minute bus ride into downtown Minneapolis where all the tall skyscrapers are. Have my little lanyard with a photo and a temporary, because it was a temp worker. Go up to the security desk, make sure I'm clear, get in the elevator, or they unlock it or whatever it was. Ride the long ass elevator ride up to whatever 40th, whatever freaking floor it was. Go into the office building. And at that point, there were the higher staff had actual rooms of offices, its own room with a door. And then everyone else had basically cubicles. So I did have my own space with my own computer and whatnot. But then, cubicles. So, with those, what are they like those room dividers, partitions, but they're not reaching the ceiling, obviously. So when you stand up, you could see into everybody's space. Um, and I was horrified by that. I would have been 18. I couldn't even do it I did that temp job for 7 days and it was supposed to be for like a month or two.
yeah.
I mean, by the end of day one, I was like, and I was spending most of the time emailing with my old friend and making fun of each other. And he was working some office job as well. And we spent most of the day just like writing back and forth. And I would make tea, multiple bathroom breaks, check in with the boss if I was supposed to be doing something. And I realized, okay, whoever I'm filling in for actually doesn't, I'm not sure what they actually do here at this office. I'm not sure they know either. but they had their little, their desk was there. It was like, and I remember the boss would even come around and tell me, "You're doing a great job, keep it up." And I was thinking, okay. And I even was kind of horrified by that because I wasn't really doing anything.
Right.
And I wondered, like, what is his role? What are all these people doing here? I was just,
Right.
and I was like, kind of already sliding into this protester, kind of atheist anarchist vibe, pretty much because all the adults I knew were involved in this charade. And I
Right.
and I couldn't tell if they knew it was a charade or if they, you know what I mean? It was like insulting
Yeah.
whether or not they knew, but that I was being asked to take part in it
Right.
and or somewhat felt forced to be taking part in it because how else were you going to survive? Dude, and I was talking to the coworkers, and I remember one guy had like a picture up of like Cancun, let's say. It must have been Cancun. It was something equally generic. Uh, and that he had that above his desk because that's where he was going to go for his 2 weeks. With him and his girlfriend. They were going to go to Cancun. So he had that picture and he was telling me about it multiple times over the course of that 7 days that I worked there. And that was horrifying to me. And
That
these
was
people
fun.
were great. I didn't have any, I wasn't judging the people as individuals,
Yeah.
but I was definitely judging the situation. It was like, what in the hell is going on here, dude? And I actually deliberately messed up the work I was doing. I started writing stuff into these files I was supposed to be creating and like making a mockery of the place and of the situation. And then when they discovered it and they said, "Hey, you're not allowed to come back to the office." And I remember my only question was, "Well, I left my box of tea up there." They said, "No, no, 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 no. No, you don't get to go back in that office." But contrast that with the best job I had as a teenager was pizza delivery before the time of cell phones.
That
Dude,
was fun, huh?
you wait at the place. There's other probably, cute girls and whoever, cool people coming and going at the restaurant. I don't have to do the dishes. I don't have to make the pizza. I don't have to clean the bathrooms. I don't have to clean the tables. I have to hang out and take the phone call orders. And whenever it's a delivery, I get to go get in my own car,
Right.
listen to my own music on a tape or a CD. It went from both, I had both, or one prior to the other, and draw and use a map, a physical map, and just my knowledge of the town to go find, and then the person's directions, spoken directions that they gave you over the phone. There was no map quest or any of this going on yet. And drive and find that person's house. And hopefully in enough time that they give me a tip and that they're not freaking pissed off and calling over and over to the pizza place. So I'm in trouble when I get back.
Right.
That was the most glorious job for a teenager, man. It was
For
like as
sure.
close as you could get to being paid to drive around and listen to your music,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. 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 No doubt.
So that was the one job that stood out to me. Besides working electrician work with my dad, that was also pretty cool because you had a start and an end to the job. But we were basically creating liminal spaces in the suburbs for people to come and move into.
Mhm.
But at least we got to be the guys engineering the back rooms instead of living inside them. But yeah, so contrast that with this corporate office space. For me, at age 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I already was so horrified by the liminality of the corporate space. I mean, I actually, that's what led to me hitchhiking and living without money on purpose. Not specifically that one job, but 40 of these in sequence. Some factory work. I
Yeah.
worked at a plastics factory making rollerblades, but you would make one piece of the rollerblade, and actually not even make that piece. The other guys would pull the plastic out of the machine and then put it into a box. Then those boxes would come to me, and I would take them back out of the box and set them on a thing where the three metal eyelets would go in for where the laces would go through on that one piece of the rollerblade. Then I'd put those back into the box, and that would go to someone else to assemble. And I started to realize, oh, I'm just like I'm less than one of these machines.
Right.
Like if the machine breaks, they fix it. If I break, they just get a new me, you know? So I couldn't handle that one. That lasted a week and a half. And I remember I just left mid shift. I took the fucking calling card. or calling card, whatever the punch card,
Yep. Yep.
M card, and I wrote on it, "I am not a robot," and I punched it out and put it in the thing and walked out. No one even noticed me leaving,
Right.
but I left the machine just sitting. I left the machine sitting there running.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I can't do this, dude. I'm gonna kill myself right now if I don't leave. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna freak the fuck out here. I couldn't take it,
Yeah.
dude. I could still feel the visceral horror. I drove home. It was overnight shift, which is even more bizarre. So I drove home. It was probably 1 or 2 in the morning. There's dew all over the grass. I drive home. I don't even park my car in front of the garage. I just get out of it like halfway up my parents' driveway where I lived at the time, obviously, 16. Got out, or 17, I mean, got out and took off my shoes and just walked in the grass and I laid down in the grass. This was in the summertime, between school years. And I just laid down in the wet grass and I was just like trembling with the exhilaration that I just left that job
Yeah.
and with
Yeah.
the fear that I wasn't going to have enough money and all these different things all at
Sure.
once.
Sure.
But the goodness of feeling the fucking ground under my back and the wetness of the grass. It didn't even matter. There must have been mosquitoes. There has to have been mosquitoes. It was Minnesota. I didn't care, dude. And I stayed out there until the sunrise. And that was like a huge turning point that night. There was like, no more. Okay, no more. No, 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 no. I can't do this. I won't do this. I won't fucking do this. And what seemed like a miracle to me at that time was all my friends and my parents and their parents were able to get themselves to do this for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had so many jobs too, man. We probably have very similar where I just can't do it. Like I can't. Some people are not made to
My mind would be telling
that.
me in the space, in my mind, it goes, dude, just do this for the summer. You're gonna make bank. You can buy a car. You're gonna save up for this. You're gonna do that. In my head was like, I could calculate that timeline, yeah, and add
Right.
up the money. And it was like, oh, no, 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 no. The body, whether my mind was telling my body, dude, just stay. It's not that big of a deal. Come on, man, just stay.
Right.
My body walked away. That's it.
Yeah.
So, in a certain sense, the radical undoing, this is the danger of this kind of work when you do the somatic work, that once you see from outside the hellish snow globe, once you see from outside the liminal space that you've been living in, there's pretty much no unseeing it. At least in my view. Some people come around, they do the work for 3 months, they get freaked out, they run away, whatever, they go find some other thing to latch onto, like some hippie festivals or you know what I mean, some meditation cult or some whatever it is, plenty of those things out there. But the danger is that of this work is that you won't, it's a lifelong thing. That's it. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you now see outside of that liminal space, and a lot of the people that you interact with maybe don't see outside of that. And you're
Yeah.
living in a world that is in essence is a little bit horrifying.
Yeah, and I think you could even generalize it to just when you start waking up, which always has something to do with coming back into the body. Um, you might not do the specific exercises that I do or you do, but
Sure.
then
It can happen from a car accident.
right, right. Then you can't deny certain things anymore. You can't live often with the same relationships that you had in the same job and the same, especially if it was just chosen unconsciously, which most people begin their life with, I suppose.
Yeah, so
Uh,
let's say you're 42 years old and you have a job that you've been doing for a certain amount of time and you have a girlfriend, let's say, or family or whatever, and you look back and you unconsciously and out of fight or flight reactions have built this life. And
Right.
you started working with me or with Chris because you felt like your life was just meaningless. You're successful, you have all the money you need, you have everything in line, you have your house, you have your car, you have your girlfriend or your wife, your family, whatever. But something just isn't right, and that ends up leading you to me or to Chris or to some kind of realization or embodiment, and somehow you dodged the psychiatrists to be able to attempt to solve this issue without their cliched drug dealing approach or forced into institutionalization or whatever it is. Then doing this kind of work, it will bring you back in touch with your body, with your life, and with actuality. But you might realize that you don't really know, or you can know. For one thing, when this happens for people, they suddenly can't tolerate the job that we're doing. Meaning, like, they went from thinking they want to transition to something else to not being able to go in for one more hour. So that can be a real problem, especially if you have people depending on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to think like blow it all up, right? Blow your whole life up, tear out everything that falls in one
Well,
swoop.
this is what I promoted. Yeah, I promoted that completely because that's what I did. I
Yeah.
couldn't not do it, you know.
Yeah.
And
But
for the right person, for the right
for the
individual
right
with the
person.
right
Yeah.
amount of resources at their disposal. Now you
Right.
can do this with resources or you can do it with raw adventure. Now I did it with raw adventure just because I didn't have the resources.
Right.
But I started to realize now I can't tell, I'm not going to tell my clients to go hitchhiking. I'm not
Right.
going to tell them to do that, especially now the landscape's a little different. But yeah, I used to tell people to completely blow up their whole life if that's what was necessary. And now, yeah, I wouldn't have that same approach now. But what do we tell people? You know what I mean? For me now, it's actually individual by individual by individual. Um,
Yeah,
and now at
for
the same
sure.
time, because I'm Orthodox Christian as well as Chris, the limits of my work of what I can offer people ends at the spiritual. So where my work ends, my invitation to you, the listener, to you, the client, or whatever, is to attend a divine liturgy, to go walk into an Orthodox church and find out what that's all about. So for me, that's what is the guiding light of all the work that I do now. Whereas in the past, I didn't have a guiding light. So the default position was the American sort of ideal of liberty at all costs. But now I
Yeah.
see that that worldview is actually nihilism in disguise.
Yeah. I guess before orthodoxy, I would have framed it as some type of Jungian individuation, like or Gurdjieff awakening type of language is what the goal, some form of enlightenment, but with Western words or the alchemical work, the great work of transforming your whatever, which it does end with like the most anybody can offer you is coming fully back into your body, like any one individual that you work with, any coach or anything, the best they can do is point out to you where your language is still showing uh how your identity is locked up in some falsehood, and then give you exercises to break out on the somatic level, and perhaps change how you talk to yourself. Like that's the most you can really you know and then just be present with people. um
Now it's interesting. I have had clients successfully navigate this kind of change and
mm,
keep their relationship and keep their house and and then usually the job is the main one that has to be the job or the business is what the occupation is what has to change. So that's generally why, not the only reason why I charge money for the work I do. I mean, I put 30 years of my life, hardcore effort and years of my life into it, number one. But also number two, that the money barrier of, and not to mention, I know that you can find over 1,000 hours probably of work of mine for free if you dig around on the internet, look at the YouTube channel and stuff. It's not like I haven't given it away. But that danger that I mentioned, the issue is that if you get to the place where you're a bit horrified by what you see with the undoing work, you're not at the end of it. There's something so amazing and beautiful about the body and about reality. Today, I took a short walk to the river and I saw one of these birds that's a really, to me, a really, all the birds are special, but birds you don't see very often that lives in the wetlands nearby. And they come to the, and it was a remarkably sunny day today. And the bird was just drying itself out and sunning its wings, this giant wingspan. And in that moment, I was just so grateful to live where I live and to be at that spot at that moment, just hearing the water go by, sitting with one of my best friends in the town here. And we had such a great connection. We played music today. We did singing training on some liturgical songs. Then we did some popular songs. Me on guitar, him on keyboard, alternating different, trying out different vocal arrangements. And then while we're doing that, I start to notice, oh man, as soon as we're singing together and I press record on the phone, my fucking neck comes up, for example, you know, and I'm like, dude, my body's still doing the fight or flight as soon as I go to sing. You know what I mean? So I've undone stuff a million times, but now in a new context, I start to pick up on it again. But I'm not horrified by it anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Next time we do our music meetup, we're going to do a series of stretching that I like to do, and then we're going to do an undoing session together and then approach the music, you know? And I'm so excited about it, even though I'm frustrated by the fact my jaw works this way when I'm trying to sing for liturgy, or that my throat goes like this, or that my lungs do, or my, you know what I mean? I'm aware of the frustration of things not working how I want them to and the obstruction of the tension. But at the same moment, I'm so grateful and so amazed by the just the bare facts of having a body, of having an existence, of having a voice, of having a friend. Sitting here with you now, I feel it as well on a visceral bodily sense. I know what Chris is, you know. It's not something, and it's something that's prior to putting it into words. And same for that river and for that particular bird. And in a certain sense, I can look back through my memories from that same vantage point, and anything that seemed horrific, including that experience, you know, including the factory experience. I look back and I see each of those as precious in a way. Why? Because it happened, because it existed. There's this beauty, there's this beauty. I'm not, now you got to be careful here. I'm not trying to say everything is beautiful. That's not the case. I'm not trying to say that the horrific is not horrific. Okay. I'm not trying to say that evil is not evil. What I'm trying to say is there's a view from which even the fact of seeing the darkness that's out there instantly reminds you of the goodness that is in contrast of, that it's in privation of. And so from that view, even the darkness points directly at what it's a privation of.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can see that as you say it. Kind of helps me see it myself. I think there's a saying, I think C.S. Lewis said it, where when you somehow touching heaven reaches back and transforms everything so that your whole life was heaven, or that your whole life was hell, like it, once you're there, like everything before that either becomes all heaven or hell, you know,
Yeah,
from
dude,
it reaches back through time, and like, yeah, that's
before,
what you're saying.
and we're talking with Will before we got to do a stream with him. You got to hang out with Will. Holy shit. Before I even knew about the church at all, before I had, and before I knew much about it, before I'd encountered orthodoxy in the flesh, Will and I had worked out this, like, what is this undoing doing to our memories? And we used the words that that the undoing redeems the past.
Yeah.
And I wasn't coming up with I wasn't reasoning that out on an intellectual level. This is not
Yeah.
from being trapped inside the hellish snow globe of the imagination. This was us looking at our visceral, real experience and trying to put words onto it afterward.
Right.
And so the way that we described it was, I was like, oh man, one of the most physically difficult nights of my life was, it was just kind of cold and drizzly, and I slept on the side of the highway in California. And I didn't take want to take out my sleeping bag and tent because I was on a hillside, and I just thought like everything's gonna be just fucked up. So I was wet, laying on cardboard, and the bottom side of me would be just warm enough that I could fall asleep until this side got cold, and then I'd wake up, and then I'd roll over quick, and then catch the sleep between each of those. And when I revisited that memory, because for me it was like it was so crazy that the moment before you could even see that the light of the sun was about to crest over, I could feel the warmth in the air start to change. You know what I mean? It was like before my visuals could tell me what it was, and I didn't have a clock with me ever. Can you fucking imagine, dude? I was traveling with not without even a watch. What was going on, dude? And trucker
I
had
envy you in a way.
I envy old me as well. Like, what a crazy bastard, dude. How did I not get murdered? Like, what in the actual fuck? But anyway, laying there on the highway, when I look back at that memory now, I even have more access to that experience viscerally than I had at the time. Because at the time, I was full of resistance to it. I was like, dude, you're such an idiot. Why'd you leave Minnesota? Like, what is going on? Ah, who can I call to help me? There's no phones. Fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it was constant stream of like, how do I survive this night? But looking back, I'm like, oh, dude, that was very real. But when I look back and I can see the face of one of my first girlfriends, I can see the way she would cross her legs at my friend's house when I was thinking like that we would be breaking up, and the both the pain of knowing the breakup was coming and the exhilaration of knowing it was coming. But I can see all of those things with the most profound appreciation for each of them. They're no longer in a cabinet of this was good and this was bad. Now, again, if you're, don't be an idiot listening to this. I'm not saying that the undoing work converts evil into goodness. I'm not saying that evil's not evil. I'm saying that my interpretive layer that was overlaid on my life, that was judging everything and putting it into categories of likes and dislikes, was removed. And the actuality, the visceral, physical, and conceptual, but physical actuality of my life experiences all took on a glow as it was redeemed through the radical undoing work.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah.
So it's like, what do they say? The Oasis, don't look back in anger. I don't look back. I can't look back in anger. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I get upset by things. I'm not saying I don't have reactions to stuff now, but I'm saying I don't look back anymore with the kind of judgment for the experiences I was having that I had at the time.
Right.
Through doing this work and getting a visceral guided tour of my life, of my past, which happened relatively quickly at the time when I first started the undoing work. Over the course of 2 years, it took place, but it was rapid fire probably in the first, after the first year, it started happening. The memory waves. I would get overwhelmed to the point of having to sit down with memories, and it was multiple at the same time, but I could distinctly see and experience each one of them. And it wasn't only conceptually, it was a visceral experience, a reliving of each of the memories, but it would happen very quickly. I can't properly put it into words, but to me, it's like as normal as this desk in front of me right now. The experience. It's that normal of a thing that happened to me.
Hmm.
And then talking with clients who I worked with Will, I worked probably 7 years. He and I started putting on the workshops together, and he assisted me with stuff. And now he's one of my best friends in the whole world. Um, through talking with him and through a few clients where I had that level of depth with, and them sharing about their experiences, this is something that was common to people who did the work long enough, consistently enough, and earnestly enough. was the experiencing of the memory waves and not clinging on to anything, but just sitting there, letting them wash over and through you. And then when you look back at those memories, it's like each one is this precious gem.
So it's like a spontaneous re
Recapitulation.
re-experience, recapitulation and re-experience of your memories. Like it's like what the good therapy has tuned into is trying to do the same thing, but artificially in the sense of like let's and even part of this is part of the somatic work is like bringing you back into that experience, but this time finishing it in the way that you would have liked, or reimagining the experience in a way that where you did what you wanted to do in the time, but instead this has just happened spontaneously, where it just you didn't have to do anything. Like in the truth of the experience is is that it's a gem. You don't have to like reimagine it any different way. It was actually beautiful. You just didn't have the eye to see it at the time,
Hmm.
um, and to some degree. You don't have to go in and like reprogram or reframe the trauma. You just have to like get in touch with reality, and it'll just order itself out or something.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's utterly profound, even to remember all that experience of memory. It's so funny to talk about memory, my memories of recapitulating my memories. Are we in a liminal space now? What's going on?
Well, it's 5 o'clock. I know we could go on all day, but
Yeah, let's just
perhaps
run through the last bit of notes that I had here and then close it
okay.
up, close it down. I think that this was a little bit ambitious today. We could even revisit this again and little make it a little more tight and but the point right now is for you and me, Chris, to get going on this live stream. And so
Yeah.
we're gonna have maybe we should even who knows what we'll call our show. It's kind of coming down between so Chris and I, for you watching or listening, we're gonna make a show here, a weekly show on the Summerland Undoing channel. And maybe you guys can help us out. We're down between two different ways of naming it. One is live nudes, and the other is the. No, I'm kidding. Just to get some attention. And the other one is the Backrooms. We could call it the Backrooms, but maybe we shouldn't. No,
No, I think it's too specific. We're so much bigger, broader than just that.
I know. So we'll figure it out. But if you guys have suggestions, if you listen to this whole conversation today, you can give us suggestions. But we'll come up with some. It should be a little Easter eggy and like
Yeah, that could be
fun.
something.
And we'll come up with it. But yeah. So let's just run briefly through the notes and kind of tie this all together. I want to just share a few more quotes. And again, shout out to Dyer. I love his content. If you haven't ever listened to him, a great place to start would be that started about the 38-minute mark on the video that I posted in the description here, which is the his take on the backrooms and liminal spaces. He was mentioning also if you have like the scientific materialist or any sort of other version of the nihilistic worldview, then reality is meaningless. You are just another piece of the office furniture that gets replaced. So that's another aspect of the horror. Another thing I thought of was the Modest Mouse song, Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine, which basically is a sort of sonic and metaphoric and vocal experience of frantic suburban collapse, strip mall rot, failed transcendence, and anticlimax. So it's kind of like it would almost serve as a great soundtrack for the corporate gothic and dead mall vibe. Malls, abandoned buildings, liminal spaces versus what is the opposite of this? The meaningful, the numinous, and the sublime, even in the midst of the ordinary. What would that be? That bird that I saw at the side of the river today, the real life connection where we're dealing with the voice and the body with a good friend. The work that Chris and I do when we work with clients or the weekly on radical undoing sessions, the experiences you have with the intensives and whatnot. So with Summerland, we're attempting to just reclaim the ordinary, to find the beautiful and the meaningful in the midst of what we're ignoring and calling ordinary. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean the illusion of ordinary and normal. Well, there's a death clock ticking in the background, and we completely erase both beauty and madness from our lives. We hide these extremes from ourselves by living lost in the hellish snow globe of the imagination. So we're not even in touch with beauty. We're only in touch with our ideas of beauty, with our interpretations of beauty. And an interesting factoid about what Jay mentioned that I thought was fascinating because I've experienced this in both in the U.S. and in a lot of in Romania, especially, and in Serbia and Croatia, and then even in Sofia in Bulgaria is where it really stood out to me. But the brutalist that communism leads to brutalist architecture, basically. So rather than the counter of a giant, beautiful monastery or an ornate and colorful and beautiful Orthodox church, you have gray communist blocks, unpainted, undecorated cement, designed for pure utility and for the worker to live in until the worker dies, and then the space gets filled by the next worker. And the funny thing is that we all know that communism leads to there, but what's going on in the West now is the color is draining out of everything. It's draining out of the color of cars that are available to you. It's draining out of, if you look at the old McDonald's or an old Taco Bell from the 1980s, each one had this, they're full of color and they had this distinct design almost to each building. And then with McDonald's now and with all those, they're just turning into gray cement boxes. So the corporate Gothic is taking over. So the end of capitalism ends up at the same gray, brutalist, anti-beauty result. Why? Because both communism and capitalism, as worldviews, are both nihilistic. So they're both materialist, atheistic worldviews. So they ultimately must drain the humanity and the beauty out of and the physicality even your own sense of living in your body is diminished. How? Psychiatric drugs, street drugs, constant staring at screens, keeping you trapped inside the hellish snow globe of the mind. Chris, you want to jump in a little bit before we move past that? Just the last few notes here.
The only thing that came to mind in that was just like, um, I always think of like why, and in gray, the removal of color. Well, it's like one, we don't want to offend anybody now, do we? So we can't have any, people are offended by a certain structure that might not be. So there's a efficiency aspect to it. Maybe that's like the fascist side, and the communistic aspect is like weaponized compassion. Like we need to make sure everybody feels okay. Okay, square boxes, square boxes. Nobody can be offended with, you know. So there's yeah, I don't know. And I feel like I need to read The Giver again since it was such a big book when I was a kid. But even like Brave New World, read some of these dystopian novels and see, get some ideas. And
Yeah, I mean, watch The Road. The fascinating thing about The Road, I watched I listened to a 5 hour Wendigoon video he does these amazing videos that are like, he's basically telling you the story in the book and giving his analysis of it. And I listened to that 4 or 5 hour video about The Road, and I was just brought into that post-apocalyptic world.
yeah,
But the stark thing was, like in Walking Dead and in certain other post-apocalypse sort of stories, the characters have some goal. There's some telos at least, right?
mhm,
But in Cormac McCarthy's The Road, it's a father and his son, and the mother's gone, and essentially it would be like if you fast forward the abandoned malls and everything is that. The whole suburb is and the whole city is that now abandoned. And it's been years since it's been abandoned. And so like almost everything's been looted as well.
yeah,
And so each day they continue down the road, but there is no ultimate destination.
right.
It's only just to keep surviving.
I only saw that once. That's with my man who's in it. What's his name? I forgot.
Viggo Mortensen, right?
Vigo Mortensen. Yeah, that's my guy. Yeah, I'll have to watch that again. It's been a long time. Book of Eli is my shit too. That's another post-apocalyptic and biblical one.
I did not
Uh,
see Book of Evil. I'll have to check that out.
really? Oh man, you gotta. Yeah, oh, yeah. Watch that ASAP.
But spoiler alert here, and it's not a spoiler so much for the movie. Can't remember the movie well enough, The Road, but the spoiler alert is about the story generally. But Wendigoon brought it up. It's interesting. He's recently a father as well. The only reason the guy keeps going, because this is a reality where heinous, horrific shit is happening all the time, every day. People have become cannibals. There's gangs everywhere. And this guy and his kid keep going. And he keeps telling the kid, you have to keep going even after I die. If something happens to me, because we are carrying the fire.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it fills my body with tingles just to even conceive of that, because I was even just thinking about that reality. I was so horrified about the road, that like he's teaching his son to be able they have like one bullet left or something. And he's teaching his son how he should put the gun into his mouth to kill himself if they're about to be caught, because that will be so that his son's not, eaten in front of him and, tortured and all this.
Right.
So the horror of that is just mind blowing. And yet somehow the fire that they're carrying keeps them going. They just keep surviving and surviving and surviving. And there's almost like nothing to build. But there's these small occasions where they can actually help someone and someone's receptive to a connection or communication.
Yep.
And
Yep.
everything
Yep.
shines. Like they find a can of peaches that hasn't been discovered and they open it up and it's like the most glorious thing ever. Or they have a night with heat in a house or something. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Um,
not that none of this to say that I hope we end up living in that way. I don't want to experience that for myself, or for anyone else to, but we're living in the horror of the convenient. And it's horrific because the convenient and the comfortable. That's the horror that we're living in, which is then it drives people insane. And now, I just saw recently, I keep up on the psychiatric scandals that are going on. And one of them is that the current administration in the US is expanding, and in Canada is expanding the ability, or let's say loosening the regulations on what it takes to have someone forcibly committed. Do you know that?
nope. But
Under the auspices of helping the drug addicted, drug-addled homeless.
ah,
But that means you and your wife or so a guy and his girlfriend have a disagreement, and whoever happens to make the phone call first and be more convincing can get the other one committed. And once you're committed, it's on doctor's discretion when or if you get out. You're not legally, you'd be better off in jail because you have more appeal process. You have more rights in that case.
yeah. Well, that just shows you that no problem can be solved at the political level, especially problems of humanity, of suffering. Uh, politicians getting involved in that just cause more problems.
Yeah. But what you can do is get out of the hell of the mind,
Yes.
come back home to the body, and learn to know the difference between what's the contents of the mind. No one here is saying that we're not asshole, liar, Indian guru, fake fucks that are telling you it's possible to stop the thoughts. That's a lie. It's always been a lie. Uh, but that you can get your identity out of the abstract and out of the hellish snow globe of the imagination and back into the actuality in which we live and move and have our lives. And you can start to see and remember all the beauty in the ordinary things that you're ignoring, including the people your friends, enemies, and family. All those people are very important to consider, and the neighbors and the people around you. So you can, regardless of if we're marching to a fucking death camp here, you can start to step back into the noumenal and the remembering of the joy and beauty of the ordinary, the exquisite fucking joy and magnificence that anything exists at all. And I'm speculating here, but I think that is something that someone like Father Roman Braga, the Romanian priest, who's just glowing, glowing when he talks. God bless him. He's dead now, but he lived in a concentration camp under Ceausescu, where they made the prisoners torture each other, and he would never renounce his faith through all that. And he said, in that camp, in solitary confinement, not even a pencil, nothing in there, not a window, nothing. That he met, or no, that in the torture camps he met true evil. He saw what true evil is and how it works through humans. And then in solitary confinement for the 6 years after the 5 years of the torture camps, in that he found, he said, then he met God. Not in the books, not in, and I'm not saying the books aren't important. Don't get me wrong. Don't be an idiot. But he's saying all his theological training didn't become alive until he lived it out.
Right.
And I just have to believe somehow that I'm guessing that what he saw was beyond, was that this joy that's beyond this world, and that he could see, he forgave his captors, in the midst of this experience. They couldn't turn everybody. They couldn't turn a lot of these priests that were in there. And the goal was to make them into, to deprogram and reprogram them to make them the perfect communists. At least was the ostensible goal, but the goal was really the destruction of all humanity. But uh,
Father Seraphim Rose, he would tell all his catechumens to read Charles Dickens. I forgot what the novel's name is, one of his main works, just to get you that human warmth again. Forget about all theology right now. You just need to become a human again, like normal. Talk to your neighbor, say hi. Feel human care and warmth again. Um,
yeah, it's like that's why I say watch The Mentalist, and start to feel the passion of the Patrick Jane character and the love that develops with the detective woman and the love between the other two characters and the way of thinking that helps you rise above even your own personal torment. Uh, but once you become embodied again, then you can do things like you'll even see the beauty in the fictional stories and in the movies and in the shows that you used to love or in the books or in something like The Road. I mean, as horrifying as it is to even imagine, but we're
you
living
just,
in. Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, you just think about that, like just watching this show right now, almost more as an experiment than anything else. But it's a HBO show with Jason Bateman and whatever. But
I
it's
started
like
watching that. I just started watching that too. Is that
the
nihilist or what, man?
yeah, like the DTF, St. Louis, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's just like everything you got to have like some homosexual thing, some trans, something to shock people because everybody's so dead now that you can't just have like a nice story of human connection. It's got to be like, you know, some crazy over the top dead. Just it's like, yeah, it really does speak unconsciously to this nihilistic, materialist, unhappiness and neurotic and and then you got.
I'm not sure. I didn't see the final episode. It's 7 episodes, right?
I'm only on the third one, so I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Okay. I didn't see the
Um,
end yet, but we know early on. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, if you're watching DTF St. Louis, but I can't recommend it, even though I love Bateman. I love both those actors, but
yeah,
uh can't recommend it at all.
no,
It was so devoid from moment one of anything beautiful to me. Like,
yeah, just darkness. And the sad part is there's still a part of me that like enjoys, because I was raised on darkness. Like I still,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this new part that's developing is like, man, just give. That's why like the last few years I'm like going back to 70s rock. Like, give me some substance. Give me like some. You know, I grew up on these dead images like Dali paintings, and it's like, give me some Baroque, give me some classical music now, give me a cigar, like give me some earth again and some, you know, unrefined. You know, I grew up on refined synthesizers and hip hop beats with no love in them, you know, and that's what these shows are like. Euphoria, my wife made me watch them. I was like, I can't do that. Like that's, dude, that's gross. That's just the most vulgar, carnal thing out there, and it's just like everything's just over the top, sexual and perverse, and because there's nowhere else to go. They've done everything. Like the you know. Yeah, you get it. But
Yeah, I mean, but then look at something like Little House on the Prairie then,
right.
or like where everything is earthy and like real people were working out their problems, you know, and taking the wagon to town for some rope and supplies or
That's
whatever.
what
I
I'm
mean, it's
saying.
like,
That's what we need though. We need Little House on the Prairie, a little bit of that back. Cause yeah.
but it's like, yeah, what's so strange is that if the telos is not something higher
Yeah.
than liberty, or we see where that leads, or consumerism, we see where that leads. That leads to the empty malls and then Amazon delivering stuff to your house. I mean, where does it, where do we go here? If it's not guided by something higher, then we end up at basically the Cormac McCarthy's The Road. That's the end game of it. Whenever the war destroys enough, you just have wandering gangs and we're just left with pure brutality. That's the late stage of nihilism is brutality. And we see it with Stalin, we saw it with Mao, we saw it with Pol Pot. To a lesser degree, we see it in the West, but it's done under the guise of other things. But you see just this, it ends up being ultimately just pure brutality. Of the four stages of nihilism, you get, what was it? Liberalism, realism. What was it? Liberalism, realism, something, and then brutality. I can't remember the third one of the four. Oh, it's the one where all the new age stuff starts to take off because you want aliveness.
So
Uh,
that's like the level of
vitality, yeah, the vitalism.
ah well, that's like the level of Terry Gilliam films. Like all his is always like the chaos of like new age gone wrong. Like, you know, in the streets, you got screens everywhere, you got just chaos. I don't know if you ever seen Zero Theorem, but it's like post-apocalyptic, but it's like you might want to watch that one. That's an interesting
Ooh,
one.
interesting. No, I never even heard of that.
Probably his most recent movie, I think. Zero
No.
Theorem.
This is why cats shouldn't be allowed in the office room and knock over all your shit. Kitties,
Yeah.
you're not making the case. You're not making a good case. So, zero theorem, theory or theorem,
Or what did you say?
zero theorem or theory or theorem, theorem.
Theorem.
That's a film or a show,
Movie. Yeah, film.
movie. Okay, great. So let's just blaze through the rest of this, and we'll pick up on some of these topics again later. But I just wanted to mention one thing that we didn't really touch on was the past or the idea of the past uh, becoming smaller, shrunken down, smaller and smaller and smaller via things like TikTok, doom scrolling, and that it went from living a life and being aware at a more slow pace over the course of the life to then things like reading. Then you had reading books and things like that. That was part of that life, but then you narrow that down to um, watching, like, say, a live stream or watching a movie. Then you narrow that down to shorter content, and then you narrow that down to even shorter content and narrow that down to, like, 30 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds of what do they call it? The TikTok brain rot. And I've heard stories of people, and I've seen it, where kids are just staring at something, and you look at it, and us, boomers or whatever we call ourselves now, older folks look at it, and you can't even grasp what is going on the screen. And if you take it away, they start crying. Uh, and it's like I saw this in an analysis about cartoons. So I used to love cartoons like Pirates of Darkwater or the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, where there's this whole story arc and multiple story arcs and adventures taking place. And now it's like cartoons, there might not even be a storyline in the cartoon. They just have people like making sounds and doing stupid shit, or like animals or drawings or whatever. So I've seen that analysis of cartoons becoming that way. But yeah, so the time is shrinking, 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 until there's nothing but the present. Now that's also one of the goals, supposed goals of all this non-dualism and all this kind of garbage is like, oh, just all that exists is existence itself, and you, the self, don't exist. That's one of their bullshit things that gets you to believe. But all the New Age and the so-called Eastern mysticism and all this kind of stuff is trying to kind of point you at the liminal space and give you a sense of that you're this God in the present, and that you as the individual are the God, and you live in the present, and that's itself is the empty void and the death of the past. That's the end game of all those of all the sort of New Age philosophies. It ends up at this nihilism, at this emptiness. So the last, you still there, Chris?
Hmm.
Oh yeah, you were just absolutely frozen. Chris became one with the liminal.
I was in the emptiness there for a minute.
So yeah, it's like the end goal, the end goal of the New Age and of these different various practices, or let's say the end result, and even psychedelics and a lot of this type of exploration is that you end up locked into the spiritual backrooms. You end up locked into the liminal, and then you've been taught that that is the aim, the empty minds, the void, and the death of the past. What do they say? You have to kill your ego. What does anyone mean by that? Does anyone know what they even mean when they say that? Because it's a blatant contradiction when you would say it. So you end up in the spiritual backrooms, the empty void, and you're just office furniture, homogenized, quantified, and replaceable. So Summerland is basically, and Chris's work as well. And Chris, I really do. I want to echo that. I'm excited that whatever we get to do together, God willing, uh, I'm looking forward to it. Rehumanizing the nervous system so ordinary rooms become numinous again. This was one key point I wanted to mention. The whole work of Summerland, and you've experienced some of it, Chris. You went through some of the intensives and stuff. It's a curated series of experiences and instructions that if you follow the instructions, these things will happen. So we're rehumanizing the nervous system. Your attention span will expand. I could sit and listen to a 5 hour video, no problem. I can recap, I can remember specific pieces of it. I can remember books that I read when I was 10 years old. I can still see all the scenes I remember from that were in the book Where the Red Fern Grows. I read it once, you know? And that's possible for you guys too. It's possible for everyone. People, those of you watching with kids, you as a parent should come and do the Summerland work, at least the radical undoing, but I'd say all the Summerland work. It's going to teach you different ways to walk, different ways to see the flowers that you're ignoring that are growing right out in front of your house right now. Uh, a million different things. And you'll be able to just automatically bring your kids out of the back rooms and into the numinous. Now, the most stark and obvious version of this is the back rooms versus walking into an Eastern Orthodox church. That's the most extreme forms on either end, you know. the
Yeah.
absolutely numinous versus the absolutely empty.
Yeah.
So we rehumanizing, and I'm not claiming to be, I'm not giving spiritual advice here. I'm not a priest. You should go check out a divine liturgy. What I'm saying is, Chris and I know how to help you rehumanize your nervous system, undo the chronic tensions so that the ordinary, you're able to see, you're able to see that the ordinary is indeed actually numinous. At which point you'll no longer have any excuse or this pesky demon of rebellion whispering in your ear that Christianity is somehow uh, ridiculous or idiotic or untrue or a fake story or a metaphor or a heuristic, like Jordan Peterson might say, but that it's the truth that remains when you've undone the chronic tensions and the lies that you are currently locked into in your own mind. So I'm not telling you to go. I am telling you to go to Orthodox Church, but I'm not telling you you need to just go ahead and drop what you're doing and take my word for it. What I'm saying is start the process, get out of your head, come back home to the body, start to see the beauty of and majesty of who we are, what we are, where we're living. And in doing so, you'll also see the privation of that. You'll see the evil, you'll see the madness, you'll see the darkness. And it's horrifying and it's scary and it's real and it's physical as well. But once you're there, you can actually see and feel and know what's going on and know that it's actually going on. Then you'll be able to make a real choice. Then you'll be able to decide, do you want to go to a liturgy? Do you want to have anything? Do you want to have a certain meal? Do you want to go swimming? Whatever. You'll actually know rather than being guided by um, the hell of the imagination and reactions, constant, never-ending reactions to reactions to reactions and overreactions and all, and then dealing with the mess you made because of your overreactions. So basically, yeah, the last few bits were that the undoing exercises, even just the simple stuff, face stretches, shoulders, like stuff you can find here on the playlist. Small physical moves that start turning the metaphoric dead malls back into real towns, basically on your inner landscape. So our internal landscape is full of the back rooms. It's full of abandonment. It's full of abandoned houses and abandoned plans and abandoned joys and forgotten beauties. And you can start to experience and reclaim that. So remember, the idea is you're already in the back rooms. Staying in the back rooms or walking out of them are both choices. And so if you want to work with Summerland, I've got a huge, huge launch coming up, and Chris maybe doesn't know yet, but I'm gonna ask him to help me during not the launch. I hate that fucking guru lingo, but I've got a grand opening, the Summerland grand opening coming soon. I'm not gonna announce the date yet, but I have set a date, and it is very, very soon. And so you'll be able to get involved with that. Make sure you're subscribed at radicalundoing.com to the email list. Make sure you're subscribed here on the YouTube channel. And then with Chris, if you can check out in the show description his Substack. I'll say it again. It was let me check here. The actual URL is becoming human and then 25. So the actual numbers becominghuman25.substack.com. And there you should subscribe to Chris, read what he's got going on there. And he and I may do some live streams over there as well. So
Yeah.
with that, and this is if you want a personally guided body first way out of the corporate Gothic hellscape. Now, this doesn't mean that the powers that be are not going to keep trying to roll out their dystopic, nightmarish future. But what it does mean is that you're not going to be a willful participant in that anymore. you'll have the ability to say yes or no to that rather than just be like I used to always say, you want to go from a victim to adventurer. The adventurer sees an avalanche while he's in his snow cave and he just digs out of it and keeps hiking up the mountain. Whereas the victim never leaves their house to even climb the mountain in the first place. So don't be that victim living the
Yeah.
rest of your life in the spiritual back rooms.
Yes, sir. Um, yeah, I'm just starting my newsletter, but right now I'm most active on Substack personally. I'm open for one-on-one coaching, like 4 spaces left. Right now, you can reach out to me on Substack. Um, and uh, Garrett's work is fantastic. His summer land was an experience. I actually took my mom through it as well, so that was great. I'm looking forward to what you got, what you're working on in the background that I'm excited to help you with. And I think the last thing you said we can might be a topic for the next time because we brought it up before. Um, we talked about it in the context of learned helplessness, but I think
Oh, yeah.
learned helplessness, self abandonment, the fawning response. There's fight or flight, and then there's fawning, which is like the people pleasing response. Um, all is connected, and maybe that could be something. I think that's something a lot of men deal with today.
Chris,
Is this?
would you put that on our on the in the drive in the
Yeah, for sure.
just under the show ideas and topics, if you would just jot that on the list, that would be great because otherwise I'm gonna forget. I think that's excellent. And you folks watching, if you made it this far, wow, you're a champion. I mean, I felt like I was pretty much rambling and all over the place. I'm amazed Chris stayed on for the whole ride, but I trust that there are gems in what we're saying. And Kitty, this is
He,
why there's gonna be no cats allowed in the office. Do you understand this, Kitty? They
Kitty's
never.
trying to tell us it's over. He's trying to tell us wrap it up,
No.
guys.
Wrap it up. Fuck. Jeez. If you made it this far, you're a champion. But no, there's a lot there, and it's worthwhile to explore. So yeah, leave us a comment. Let us know about your experiences, whether it was hit with hitchhiking, with backrooms, with liminal spaces, with urban exploration, exploring abandoned buildings, um,
Psychedelics, orthodoxy, whatever. Tell us what you want us to talk about
psychedelics,
next time.
orthodoxy, the whole works. The whole works.
Bring it
Yeah,
all.
Chris and I are oh yeah, this is great. I'm excited to keep doing these with you, Chris. Today,
Me too.
like I said, the goal was that we sit down and actually fucking do it. So
Right. We'll get better.
goal
We did
achieved.
it.
Goal. What's that?
Okay. It was success. We did it. We'll get better.
The first one. Once you see us again in a week or less, yeah. So there we go. That's it. We're gonna close it down without too much more fanfare. That's it. We need some
Sounds good, man.
music. We needed a music outro. What
We
you
need
want?
music. We need an intro. We need some
Yeah.
art, some graphics. We need a few different things. We'll get there.
And just like any good abandoned mall, we need live nudes. No, anyway.
Live news.
All right.